Saving Her House Through Tears and Prayer by S.C. Turnbo. A man of the name of Joe Allen lived on Shoal Creek in Taney County, Missouri. His cabin stood on the east bank of the creek near 1/4 mile below Protem. When the war broke out, Allen claimed to be a Southern man but refused to enlist in the Confederate Army. As the war progressed, Joe proved to be a bad man and kept the worst of company. Peter C.S.A, who lived on Big Creek on what is now the Sam Hollett place, was a Union man, and when the war warmed up to red heat, C.S.A taken his family and sought safety among his friends who lived on the Little North Fork. "A few hours after, I was compelled to desert my home on Big Creek," said Mr. C.S.A. Joe Allen and his clan come along, and finding that we were gone, set fire to my dwelling and reduced it to ashes. I went on, and as soon as I got my family in safe quarters, I lost no time in making preparations to retaliate on the destroyer of my residence. Joe Allen had burned my home, and I was determined to burn his hut. I asked a few of my intimate friends to assist me at the burning, and they promised to aid me. It was war times, and who cared for burning a house when the enemy burns yours? My heart was hardened, and with those that had promised to help me, we mounted our horses and rode off toward Shoal Creek. Now we went at a rapid gait, and it did not take us many hours to reach Joe's cabin. Of course, Joe was not there, but his wife, whose name was Awilda, and 2 or 3 of the little children were in the house. The wife and children were destitute. Their clothes were in tatters, and they were nearly without food. It was shameful for a man to turn a mother and her little ragged children out of doors, but I cared nothing for that. I was wanting revenge for the loss of my house. Now, I had informed Mrs. Allen at once what we had come for, and as I did not desire to deprive her of what few household property she had in the house, I ordered her in a peremptory way that she must carry her household effects out of doors. And she protested with piteous words not to destroy their only place of shelter. It seemed I possessed the heart of a savage and refused to listen to her tearful entreaties. In reply, I told her to hurry or I would set the house on fire before she carried her things out. With loud sobs and her eyes bathed in tears, she began to move out the few bedclothes and scant furniture. She saw that it was useless to plead with the barbarian and went on with the work. We waited in silence until the despairing woman had carried out all her effects to a safe distance so they could escape the flying sparks from the burning hut. We now began to make preparations to set the building on fire, for I was anxious to see it go up in flames. At this moment now, the near-crazed woman renewed her pleading to me not to wipe out their only shelter. She prayed that I might repent of my wicked design of burning their cabin, and that she could not help what Joe had done, and begged me and my friends to return back home and leave her house to shelter herself and her helpless children. She looked up toward heaven, and I saw her tear-stained cheeks as the tears were streaming down her face, and she implored the good ruler of heaven and earth to soften our hearts that we might abandon our heartless work and go away without destroying her only a place of abode. She stood and pleaded and prayed as if her heart was broken. Her little children were standing there with her, holding her dress and crying. It was a heart-rending scene, and a few minutes before this, Satan had control of my heart. But as I listened to the poor, helpless woman's piteous sobs of grief, and heard her devoted prayers, and saw her children huddled about her, my wicked thoughts of burning the house began to soften. The spirit of revenge was leaving me, and the impression of pity was taking place in my stony heart. Her prayers were too much for me, and I yielded to the influence of her supplications. Turning to my companions, I said, "Men, we cannot afford to burn this house. and I told the weeping woman that she was at liberty to carry her stuff back into the hut, for it was safe as far as we were concerned, for we had got out of the notion of putting fire to the building. The nearly distracted woman could hardly believe it until I assured her that it was true. Then she gladly put away her tears and sorrows and rejoiced that I had changed my mind. Though Joe Allen had wronged me, it was my desire and intention to treat him likewise, but the tearful prayers of this helpless wife had turned my reckless heart into one of mercy, and I thank God to this day that I did not burn down that cabin.